I don't imagine that the title of this video is going to come off as any surprise for the people who have been watching my most recent streams. After having crashed out over an organization penalty that was proclaimed due to munitions, only to run into the exact same issue in another game that didn't have the luxury of being blamed on any supply issues whatsoever, I think that it is time that we address the elephant in the room. Organization sucks as a mechanic right now. In theory, it is a wonderful idea that is meant to penalize players for ignoring certain aspects of the game, but in reality, it is an extreme punishment to players for reasons that are not properly explained at all. What is a minus 22% supply issue when you have no supply issues, full convoys, and a fully connected land connection to your market capital and capital? That minus 60% offense and defense you're facing are the result of calculations that are not shown to you, and frankly, you as the player do not deserve to know. It's clear plebeians should stick to digging up potatoes and letting the all-powerful artificial intelligence do its job, right? Right. It is a miserable feeling to be in a situation where you know that you're going to win 100% of the time, yet you get caught up in a quagmire of fronts that are spread out all over the map. Then you look down to the right-hand corner to discover that every single one of your troops is experiencing a huge organization loss, and half of them are at zero organization entirely. That wonderful 150 offense that you were in fact relying on just became 30 offense. That sexy 160 defense that was holding your lines, now it's 40. Hope you brought enough conscripts to hold out until the game decided that you have suffered enough and let your stupid organization crawl back up, and I do mean crawl. Now, it's clear I'm a little bit upset, and I have absolutely nothing concrete to back this up. Frankly, I am not a code diver, and my understanding of the game is always going to be, at best, purely surface level. Yet, I am somebody who can see the writing on the wall ahead of time, and right now, organization is in a precarious position that can lead to the destruction of many games. This won't be so bad for the people who can just reload and avoid the trigger entirely, but for those of us who only get one shot on a live stream, well, we just missed our chance to blow. This opportunity came once in a lifetime. I do honestly think that the Exile mechanic is to blame here. Simply put, it triggers on a hair's notice, and it is extremely punishing. The moment you even sniff another person's land, you are facing off against a minus 50% offensive bonus just because the word Exile decided to pop up overhead. Heaven forbid you lose a naval invasion and end up running to your allies' land, because not only did you just end up as an exile with zero organization, but you can't even move your stupid troops to a new front line or back to your own land. Oh no, you have to disband your troops entirely to move them. Wonderful mechanic, isn't it? Especially once you have a revolution in the background, because now you can't disband your troops. Hope you're enjoying the game. Speaking of naval invasions, it seems that the troops have a nasty penalty for doing so now, because they will linger mindlessly on enemy territory for ages, losing almost 50% of their organization when doing so. This is not a problem if you properly prepare, but this appears to be predominantly a player-only nerf, since enemies teleport when they lose their naval invasions. I think the main reason why this has not become a major problem yet is because it still happens quite rarely. Most people haven't even played past the year 1900, so they won't likely experience the nightmarish hell of a world war where there are 50 fronts scattered across the landscape, and guess what? Unlike Hearts of Iron 4, those fronts do not move intuitively. They're jagged, they're scraggly, and they are extremely broken. For most players, they likely will only encounter this issue when your own army's pathing is forced to walk through neutral territory because the front changed and the pathing isn't smart enough to work around it, or kind enough to simply teleport you as it did your enemies, which isn't very fair either, now is it? In fact, teleporting is a bit of a confusing aspect too. What constitutes the reasoning for the teleporting? Why is it so rare for players and yet it seems almost guaranteed for your enemies? When fronts change to do something weird and it becomes jagged and crooked, the enemy is always sitting there ready, waiting for you to show up, building up an attack front because there are no actual defenders there yet, likely even winning a couple battles because your troops have to walk around neutral territory despite the fact that they were literally just there at the front mere moments ago. What a joke. I'd like to remind everybody that we already have a mechanic in place that delays attacks until everybody is ready when it comes to the player doing a naval invasion, so why isn't there one in place for major front changes? If a front changes and your army is forced to walk all the way around Africa, you should not be guaranteed to lose simply because the pathing is bad. The enemy should instead be forced to wait until their previous enemies arrive, or we should be gifted a free army teleportation as penance for the awful pathing. Unfortunately, I am getting a little bit off topic here. It is partially related to the main issue at hand, particularly regarding organization, but I think that this is a subject that deserves its own video in the future, so we're gonna stop here. Bringing us back to the main point, Exile is a mechanic that I wish they would revisit, and I do mean revisit the concept of Exile entirely. I would say that a much slower penalty is definitely in order, or, frankly, get rid of Exile entirely. I really do despise the Exile mechanic as it acts entirely as a clear nerf to players that does not seem to affect enemies in the slightest. I'd like to remind people that it forces you to micromanage your armies without fail, because if you do fail, you're going to be facing an organization penalty that could very well cost you a war. Another reason why I think they should get rid of the mechanic entirely is because Exile is buggy as hell, and the likelihood of your troops ending up trapped only goes up with every ally that you happen to have. It makes having allies a potential liability, and you damn well better not fail any naval invasions when you are not paying attention. Nothing aggravates me more as a grand strategy player than being punished for playing well. Having plenty of allies is something that should be directly rewarding for players because it's not always easy to do. In Victoria 3 especially, it's almost impossible to do well because not every country is going to get multilateral alliances, so why are we now being punished for doing it? It is getting to the point where I'm wary of keeping allies with land that happens to be closer to your enemies because the chance of a naval invasion armies returning to your allies' land rather than your own land goes up exponentially when that happens. It is not something that I feel I should have to consider when making tactical decisions, but because of this broken Exile mechanic and the clear punishments I've endured because of it, I have no choice but to incorporate its jank into my decision making. I'd like to remind people that it is in fact jank. It is so jank that I'm about to make a very severe declaration that many people might not agree with here. I think the Exile mechanic is the most broken mechanic in Victoria 3 right now. The more I deep dive into how it works, the more I realize that it doesn't work. It is bad. It is really, really bad. This disjointed rant probably won't reach the ears of the developers, but I do hope that it reaches the ears of people who have experienced this and are completely befuddled as to why their organization tanked. You aren't alone, and frankly, you aren't even at fault. Reload if you can and retry, avoiding the fronts that are causing your issues. Maybe even avoid the war that led to the creation of those fronts entirely if you have to. Anyhow, I think that's enough whining from me today. I just wanted to get this annoyance off of my chest. Thank you for listening this far into the video. You guys are truly kings. Make sure to give your loved ones an extra hug tonight because they might not be here tomorrow. Believe me, this is something that I do know. Now, remember, Hail Hydra Cat.